Okay, welcome everyone to what is our last episode in the CAD modernisation series. So it's been great fun having you all here and allowing us to show off the products that you use every day. Today, though, we are looking forwards. We're going to be talking about Creo 12, which is the new release from PTC for Creo Parametric. So let's get started. Just a little bit of a recap. As I said, this is our last episode in the series. So if you have missed any of our previous episodes that you can see on screen there, they are all available on our website. So you can head over to pdsvision.com and pick up on and watch these on demand. So you can go back and view those at your leisure. We will also upload this episode as well if you want to review it. Little bit of an agenda then. So as always, I'll do a short introduction of myself and PDS Vision as an overview. I'm then going to talk a little bit about the Creo landscape and talk specifically really around the versioning. We saw it was 12.4 on that home screen. I want to clarify a few bits and pieces on that. And then we'll jump down into the weeds with productivity, some composite stuff, along with some demonstrations as well. So hopefully it should be all exciting stuff. As always, if you have any questions, we should have some time at the end to run through those, so fire those away into the questions dialogue within GoToMeeting. We'll pick those up, we'll also compile them and ping them all out to you afterwards. A little bit about myself then. My name is Rory Allen-Bowcott. I'm a customer success manager here at PDS Vision, and I've been with the business over just over a decade now, and it's my job to ensure that you, our customers, are getting the most from the software and experience you have with PDS Vision. So I do things like this, host webinars. I also go out on site, meet our customers, speak to them, help them develop roadmaps, and ensure they have all the information needed about the technology that they purchase from us. So I'm from a tech background. I've got experience in a fairly broad range of the PTC product portfolio. A bit of a jack of all trades, maybe a master of a few, but who knows. PDS Vision then, for those that maybe aren't aware, we are a global reseller for both PTC and ANSYS technology. We span the entire globe with 16 different locations. We've got over 500 employees within the business, and with over 300 of those being technical focus. Just okay that message there. So as I said, our expertise encompasses the entire PTC portfolio, along with the ANSYS technology, as well as our own solution of MyPDS apps, which are applications designed to enhance and expand the capabilities of that PTC portfolio. So that's a little bit about PDS Vision. Let's get stuck into, though, the topic for today, which is Creo 12. So I wanted to start by, first of all, just addressing that versioning that you saw on the home screen there. So we're talking about a new release of Creo Parametric, which is now out and available to download, which is Creo 12. And it's Creo 12.4 for the on-premise version of Creo. Now, the reason behind this is a few years ago, PTC introduced a SaaS offering, a software as a service offering for Creo Parametric, which is Creo Plus. The cadence at which these are now moving forward is Creo Plus is always a year's development cycle ahead of the on-premise version of Creo. So if we take a look at the timeline here, you can see that Creo Plus version 12 came out last year in Q3. Okay, and so it has been out, and there's a quarterly development cycle for or release cycle for Creo Plus, and therefore we are now at Creo 12.4 in the development cycle, which is why the on-premise version is coming out at 12.4. So this is actually probably a good thing for you on-premise users. Historically, users and our customers have always tended to hold back a little bit, let a few date codes and patch fixes iron out some maybe teething issues from the release code. What you now have is a full year's worth of industry testing before Creo 12 comes out to you. So all of those teething issues that maybe arose should be ironed out already. And moving forwards, this is going to be the development cycle. So you can see here in Q3, Creo Plus, our SaaS offering, will be at version 13. And therefore, when we come down to Q2 2026, Creo 13 on-prem will be 13.4. So I just wanted to clarify the versioning scheme. You haven't missed anything. This is still the new version of the software. So let's start with something that probably affects the majority of users within the Creo ecosystem, which is productivity, usability enhancements. Now, within Creo 12, I believe there are over sort of 250 unique enhancements to the product. So we don't have time to go through all of them. I have a massive PowerPoint presentation that has every single thing listed on it, but we don't have time to go through that today. So we cherry-picked a few bits and pieces, combine that with some demonstrations, and hopefully we should give you a good insight as to what Creo 12 has to offer. But let's kick things off with productivity and usability. So actually, one of my favorite additions to Creo 12 is the first one in the list here, which is feature presets. And these are a real big time saver, I think, for repeatable design work. So I would imagine most of you tend to create the same types of features over and over again. You know, we're all working in our own industries, within our own businesses, and we tend to develop the similar sort of products, and therefore you're using very similar features on a very frequent basis. Things like holes, cutouts for vents, maybe mounting bosses, or maybe a particular round or chamfer that you're always applying to your designs. So feature presets are predetermined, pre-planned out features for things like holes, extrudes, revolves, rounds, chamfers, and curve from equations. So PTC are looking to expand this, but if we take a hole, for example, maybe you have a particular hole, it's always the same diameter, it's a drilled hole, it's a through all, and it's got a countersink on it. That's something you apply 90% of the time in your designs. With feature presets, it makes it really easy to go in and define that hole type or that extrude type that you can see on screen there. Okay, so a real nice user enhancement there, I think. And something I'm going to show off in a demonstration a bit later. So the model tree is another area and something you probably interact with constantly while you're working. And it's seen several refinements in Creo 12. One of them is being able to, well, as an example, quilt names, which were always shown in the design items tree, now reflect the feature they originate from. That makes it a lot easier to understand and trace where geometry is being created from. Just a slight tweak there. You can, when you hide design items in that design items tree drop down, in previous versions, it wouldn't hide the feature. So in your actual model tree, that feature would remain shown, which was a bit of a disparity. So now when you hide something in the design items tree or vice versa, it hides the corresponding feature. And a few other little tweaks and changes in the model tree as well. But one of the new features that's been brought into Creo 12, though, are visibility states. So these are sort of ad hoc states where you can capture the current visibility of your model. So if you've gone into your model and you've hidden a load of components in an assembly because you're working on a particular area, there are situations where sometimes that state you're currently in is exactly what you need, but you want to then show a load of other information to go grab a bit of geometry, copy a surface maybe, and then you want to jump back to where you just were and have everything hidden again. These visibility states are designed to capture that moment in time of the visibility state of your model, so you can jump backwards and forwards between a couple of different states. Really handy for those ad hoc on the fly, rather than having to go in and create a simplified representation or a layer state or something like that. So we'll show some of the stuff off. Expanding on that, another new enhancement for Creo 12 is highlighting what's new in the UI. So PTC have always added what's new to the help files for the last several releases. But this actually highlights those newly added features or modified features directly within the user interface. So it can help users spot what's new and understand and explore the changes that have been implemented throughout the new version. Creo 12 also introduced a clearer performance reporting tool. So this actually might be something that some of you aren't aware of. but within Creo, I can't remember exactly what version this came in, but we have a performance reporter. So if you're struggling with some designs, you've got an assembly or a part that is slow to regenerate, you can use this performance report to run through a regeneration and list out the regeneration times for all of those individual assemblies, sub-assemblies, parts, features, right down to that feature level, and can maybe allow you to go in and optimize your designs. You can find out what's really causing things to bog down and maybe optimize those. So that's seen some improvements to regards to how it presents that information to you as a user. Also, tooltips have been improved. So if you hover over a feature within Creo, you should now see an enhanced tooltip with clearer visuals and more clearer information on what that feature is and how to use it within the system. As I'm sure you can appreciate, there are thousands of tooltips within Creo Parametric, so PTC haven't got through all of them yet, but moving forward, PTC should continue to add and modify and update all of these tooltips, again, improving user adoption and onboarding. Let's talk a little bit about multi-body updates. So if you've ever built using the master model technique, where you create a multi-body component and then save out all of those separate bodies as parts, Creo can now let you convert all of those bodies into a flat assembly. Previously, you would have had to have saved out each body as a separate part, which is really tedious and time consuming, especially for those larger master models. So this new capability is a real big time saver for just saving that entire part out as a flat assembly. We can now import step assemblies directly into a multi-body part. So rather than bringing in a step assembly as an assembly, we can convert those parts into bodies and have them brought in as a single part. So this is really good if you're maybe, I don't know, working with supplier data, or you just want to try and consolidate a more complex assembly and have less data to manage in the business. Multi-body support in sheet metal has also been improved. With Creo 12, we've enhanced the robustness for complex modeling scenarios. So you can now perform operations like splitting a body. This is actually quite a niche one, but if you have a swept flange along a curved trajectory, in previous versions, if you were to split that body, we'd struggle to flatten out both sides of that split body. Creo 12 can now handle those sorts of scenarios. We have fully dependent mirrors now in sheet metal. So if you mirror a feature like a flat, which I'll show off in a demonstration, it can now be dependent upon the original geometry. So if you can make a modification, it's going to propagate through. Easier to maintain symmetry across your designs. Also, the little picture you see on there is merging separated walls. So previously those walls would have had to be intersecting. Now Creo can extend those walls out and merge them out there where their intersection points would be, along with any bends and reliefs, those sorts of things. So the enclosure volume tool is another feature that's been improved. So this again, I think, was something that was introduced in Creo 11, maybe in Creo 10, but I'm pretty sure it's Creo 11. So the enclosure volume tool is a feature that wraps a bounding box around your geometry, either aligned to a coordinate system or the default coordinate system by default, or we can generate an optimized bounding box, so the smallest possible bounding box based upon the geometry that's been selected. So that's a feature that was already there in Creo 11. But some of the modifications, we've expanded the parameters, so the information you can pull out of that bounding box has been expanded, so more use downstream. And one of the things that it couldn't do, it was a feature in the model tree. You can now add this feature to the footer of the model tree. Therefore, it's always up to date. If you make modifications to your design, the enclosure volume is going to be updated as well. And I will show some more of that. Working with style surfaces, so ISDX is slightly more forgiving in Creo 12. And by that, I mean you can reroute references directly within the style environment without having to recreate or start over on that feature. So this, again, extends some of the functionality that's available outside of style. if you want to change the references of a feature in the parametric side of Creo, you can just choose, you can bring up a dialog box and reroute those references. That functionality is now available for style surfaces within the style tool, and just bringing the consistency across the platform. Both style and parametric surfacing tools have an updated UI and a refresh for some of those glyphs that you can see on screen, so a more continuous effort again to deliver a more consistent UI. So those glyphs have been updated across both platforms. Some of the boundary blend behavior has been refined to produce a more natural surface. Again, this is a fairly niche scenario, but if you were creating a boundary blend between two surfaces and you had a free constraint on one side of that surface and then a continuity constraint, like a tangency or curvature continuous constraint on the other side, the shape of that surface it would create would be a bit odd with that free constraint. I always try to create a free constraint 90 degrees to the surface it's attached to. That has been improved. It's a fairly small improvement, but it should create a more natural looking curve out of the box. A brand new feature for Creo 12 is the approximate surface feature. So this lets you replace a complex or messy group of surface patches with a single clean surface patch. Okay, so this is helpful for cleaning up maybe imported geometry, or if you're trying to resolve an issue where you're trying to offset a surface and it won't offset. So this is a little example here. You can see we've got multiple different patches of surfaces. We can use the approximate surface tool to replace all of those with a single clean patch. Again, if you were trying to offset these, maybe you've got a singularity or something on some of these surfaces causing the offset to fail, doing a replacement could solve that problem. Or maybe you're cleaning up imported geometry. Finally then, Creo 12 makes it slightly easier to work with Windchill assemblies, or assemblies stored within Windchill. So you can now open a subset of components directly from Windchill without needing to predefine a simplified representation in Creo Parametric. Okay, so this lets you quickly access just the parts you want from an assembly, which will improve performance and load times and those sorts of things. So this functionality is available outside of Windchill. If you go and open an assembly when you're not connected to Windchill, you always have that option right next to open in the open dialog box with the drop down, and you can open a subset. And what that enables you to do is get the tree structure of that model and pick and choose what assembly options or what components you want from that assembly and just open those. That functionality has now come to Windchill. Sustainability is also becoming a growing priority across many different industries. So Creo 12 is taking steps to support that. So it's not available out of the box right now, but in an early maintenance release of Creo 12 will add the functionality to manage and link to materials stored within Windchill, providing you with better visibility of quantities and usage of materials within your designs. So let's have a look at some of these features then. So I've decided to run with a bit of a live demo today, so we'll fire up Creo and we'll take a look at this and run through some of these features. So the first thing to note, I suppose, is this highlight new on this screen here. If I just zoom in on this for you all. It's a new feature for Creo 12.4 is highlighting new features within the user interface. So if we show some of these options here, there are a couple of different highlighting types. There's a triangle, which is a slightly less obtrusive method of flagging these up. Just puts a little blue triangle in the corner of the features and icons that are new to this version of Creo. Or for this demo, I'll actually turn on the marker, which sort of paints the background yellow like a highlighter would in Microsoft Word, something like that. There are a few more features as well. You can obviously turn this on and off. And also we can come in here and you can actually toggle on where you want these highlights to start from. So obviously Creo 12.4 is the first release where this feature is available. But if we were to look forwards into the future and say that maybe we've just fired up Creo 13 and we want to see everything that's been introduced since Creo 12.4, we can come back and find that. So not all of our customers update every year. So you might span multiple years. You can turn on all of the updates from when you last, from your previous version of Creo and see all of those updates. Obviously, we can reset them as well. But let's click OK on that. Let's open up our model. You'll have to excuse me, I'm just coming off the end of a cold, so I might end up coughing through this. I'm just going to have a sip of water. So we're using this catamaran again. If you joined one of the previous episodes, this gunboat here is what I'll be using to show off some of these new features in Creo 12. So you'll probably see a lot of this moving forwards. But first thing I want to show here we've got some highlighting, right? So these are some of the new features in Creo 12. So if we have a look at this first one, which is tangent edge display. So if we open up our hull here, you can see we've got some tangent edges where these surfaces are joined. There is tangency between these. If we toggle on and off this view, we can show and hide those tangent edges. So this could just be a personal preference. Maybe you prefer to look at your model like this, or you're doing screen grabs, slightly cleaner look to the model. So you can toggle on and off these tangent edges with this feature here. If you hover over any new feature, you get the drop down so you can learn more about it. That's going to open up the help files, give you more detailed information on exactly what this tool is. And you can also clear highlights as well. So as you're working your way through, you can clear off all the things that you've looked at. Next in here in the graphics toolbar then are visibility states. So as I said, if we were working on a model and we want to, let's say we're doing some more design work here. So let's hide off a few components in this assembly. Maybe that's it. I'm good. You know, I'm working on this little motor assembly here, but I need some information from the stuff that I've just hidden. What I can do is I can capture the current visibility. Okay, and if I hover over this, it's going to give you a little graphic to show you what the current state is. I can then reset. I can bring everything back, grab what I need, and then I want to jump back to where I was. So obviously I hadn't hidden much stuff, but using the toggle visibility, I can then jump back to that previous state. Okay, it could be more drastic. We could have had more stuff hidden, right? If I go and grab a load of information here, hide this off, I could capture this. I can now jump backwards and forwards between these states. So again, bringing everything back into view, quickly jumping straight back to where I was. So just a small tweak, but can improve sort of that day-to-day activity when you're working on these models. So you're always hiding things off, working inside other bits, other components, those sorts of things. It's a nice little feature there. Let's take a look at some part modeling though. Let's jump into a sub-assembly here. We turn on my combined views. I never remember where it is in the UI, so I always end up searching for it, but there we go. Combined views, and let's toggle on this and let's find a part to work on. So let's take a look at this little lever here for some of the steering components, and we'll talk feature presets. So I'm going to add a predefined hole to this model. Okay. That was pretty quick, wasn't it? I really like these feature presets. They're really cool. So let's talk about them in a little bit more detail. So whenever we apply a feature, let's take another hole for an example. We've obviously got information that we apply to this hole. What type is it? What profile is it? What counterbores, countersinks? Does it have an exit countersink? What diameter, depth options? All of this information we can capture in what we now have as a feature preset. So you see we have a new tab here where we've got I've already got some predefined presets. Okay, so we can create these on the fly. We can update them. We can also set a default. So if there's always a hole, I use 90% of the time. You can set this as the default, which is this 10 mil through all. And what that means is when I come in to create a hole, by default, it's creating that 10 mil hole with a countersink through all. Okay, so a really nice little enhancement, simply just being able to set this by default as well. But if we make any modifications, change this, we can add this to the list. It's going to capture our options here. We give it a name, and it's stored in the system, ready for us to reuse elsewhere. We can apply different ones, we can cycle through them, and it's going to apply these to our model. Okay. And I said these are available for holes, rounds, chamfers, revolves, extrudes, and curves from equations at the moment. I think that was the full list. But PTC are going to be looking to expand feature presets across more features as we move through the iterations of Creo Parametric. Let's create a different one though. Let's create an extrude and save that as a preset. So let's first of all define what our preset is going to look like. So let's go and create an extrude on this top surface. I will open up the palette. Now there are some new shapes in the palette, specifically around sort of racetracks with some new dimensioning schemes. So center to center, total length, arc to arc, these sorts of things. So let's grab one of these new ones, this center to center. And we'll constrain this in the model, give it some dimensions. And we'll locate the sketch. And now let's fill out the feature information. So we are going to go through all. I'm going to remove material. Let's flip the direction and we're okay. So what I want to do, maybe I want to reuse this. This is something I create all the time for my day-to-day work. Let's add a feature preset. So we'll click plus. Again, it's captured the information. For the extrude, we also have the option of saving the sketch. Or maybe you do a lot of surfacing. 90% of the stuff you do is surface first. You could create a preset where it's just, you're capturing the surface and you just save that as the preset and set that as default. So every time you create an extrude, you're now creating surfaces by default each time. Handy little things like that. But we can give this a name. Let me just give it something that I can pick out. Well, I've only got two there. I probably would have managed that. We'll save this as a preset. So I can now use this over and over again, even in another model. So I could open up a different lever here. And I like to go through the right-hand mouse button on the feature itself, hop in the rectangle, choose my sketch plane. Maybe I want to modify some of the dimensions, so I'll hop into the sketch. Click OK. It's saved my settings and we're good to go. Okay. So these feature presets, I think, are a really, really handy addition and can really speed up your workflows. One thing to mention is also these are saved in the customization.ui file. So you can maybe generate a company list of presets and have that UI file deployed across your users. So that is a capability as well. You can have some company standards, maybe notches for bend lines in your sheet metal work, or company logos, extrudes for embossing your logos, those sorts of things. Let's move on now to another feature, another update, which was the enclosure volume tool. So for those of you who aren't aware or haven't seen it before, if you go to surfaces, your Creo 11 or above, we have enclosure volume. Okay, so we click on enclosure volume here. What it's going to do, it's going to wrap a bounding box around my geometry. By default, it's aligned to the default coordinate system. We could change that coordinate system if we wanted to. This is nothing new. Or we could optimize it based upon the shape. So what that's going to do, it's going to generate me the smallest possible bounding box for the geometry I have here. This works for assemblies or selected components within assemblies, quilts. You can generate these bounding box for all of those different feature types. What happens by default though is this is a feature, and it's a feature in the model tree. So if we were to go in and modify this geometry in any way, the order in which we create features is important. So if I was to maybe just go flex modeling here, grab a load of features, do a move operation, my enclosure volume is before that move feature, so it's not going to update. So what PTC have built in for Creo 12 is the ability to add this to the footer within the model tree. Now, the footer of the model tree doesn't accept geometry, which is what was preventing this tool from being added in Creo 11. So there's now a checkbox to turn off the geometry itself. If we now do that, we can add this to the footer of the model tree. Okay, and it sits there. That way it's always going to account for any of these design modifications, any changes you make to your design. The parameters for this feature have also been expanded. So if we go have a look at the feature here. Oh, it's because I've added it as the footer. Let me take that out the footer and show it this way. It's not really a feature if you do it that way. Oh, I must have had something turned. What have I got turned off? Oh well, I'll show you this way instead. I'm not sure what I've done wrong there. Live demo, say. Under the properties here, we've got our parameter list. I can zoom in on this for you. So if this has been expanded, there are more parameters there to choose from. So if you're using these downstream, you want to pull them through into your 2D drawings or an annotation on the model itself, there are more to choose from there. So you can check this box, create parameters while not having the geometry created, and that can still be in the footer of the model itself. Okay, so it's always going to update your drawings, always going to pull through the accurate parameters for the model in its current as is state. So let's jump back to here. So I look at our sheet metal improvements then, or a few of the sheet metal improvements, I should say. So I have a multi-body component here with some sheet metal bodies inside. There's also a solid body here, which is acting as a bit of a template, which these walls are being built off, but we can hide this off for now. And let's talk about one of the first updates here, which is dependent mirrors. So we've got this flat, a couple of extrude cutouts and some reliefs and things, which has been defined as a local group. I want to mirror this, so we'll take the group, we'll mirror it. I've got a map key to turn on my planes, or toggle my planes, I should say. But under the options now, you can now see we have this fully dependent mirror with options to vary. You can also see one of the new callouts as well, the new tooltips, these improved graphics and descriptions. So I now have a fully dependent mirror. Okay, so if I was to go in and modify my original geometry, let's change the relief type. We'll choose one here. I don't know, let's choose rectangular. You can now see that our geometry on our mirror has also updated to mimic the change we've made here. Let's go ahead and grab our body. So I use the select related drop down in the mini toolbar, which allows us to choose sort of our parent-child relationships of our reference that we selected first of all. And we're going to mirror this. So let's mirror our body. And now I can show you one of the other new features, which is generating a downstream assembly from our master part here. So previously in Creo 11 and earlier versions, users would have had to have gone through and created a part from body for each of these bodies with in this multi-body component, and then build up the assembly. Creo 12, we can now generate an assembly directly from these bodies. So if we click on this, we obviously give it a name. We can choose a template for our assembly. I'm just going to leave things as default for now. And under the advanced tab, we can get a little bit more information. So I can come in here and pick and choose the bodies I want to generate. So I could turn off the enclosure. This was a bit of a construction geometry. I don't need that. And for sheet metal components, we can also pull through the inherited information, which is going to give us that feature list. Again, slight caveat there for working with inherited features and those sorts of things. Advanced assembly is required to go back and make any modifications to that, but I will show you some of the differences here. I turn one to a copy geometry, so at least you can see the differences here. Obviously, renaming conventions fairly standard throughout Creo Parametric, but let's create this assembly. So in the background, Creo's going to generate an assembly, generate the parts, build it all together for us. So as you can see, we've got a flat assembly. We've got all our individual components. They're fully defined within the assembly, the default constraint. Maybe I wanted to come in and maybe add in my fixtures and fixings with IFX, so I needed an assembly to do that. I can now leverage those tools very quickly. But if we open, I can't remember which one I chose to copy geometry from, but just to show you the differences, by default, any solid geometry is going to be created with a copy geometry, but for sheet metal, we get the option. Here I chose to do a copy geometry feature. If we open up one of the other objects though, where we have inherited features, we can now pull through the model tree from our original part. So we could make further alterations to this without affecting the original design part if we wanted to. But again, making modifications to inherited information requires an advanced assembly license. You can still create them without the license, but you can't modify them. So other users, maybe you've got an advanced assembly license, but not everyone does. You could still create these and users could still use them without the advanced assembly. They just can't make modifications. Okay, let's close these off. We don't need these anymore, or this one. Let's open a step file then. Let's go grab a step file. So in here, in my working directory, I've got a step, which if I double click and open this, we can now import as a part. So this is a step assembly. We're going to import it as a part. Just need to make sure under topology, we're maintaining the multi-body structure for assemblies. Okay. We could also go the other way around. So an imported model to a new Creo assembly. So if it's a multi-body part, we bring it into a Creo assembly, flat assembly. But we'll open this up. And what you'll now see is all of those parts within the assembly have now been converted to bodies within our structure. Okay, so again, if you want to simplify imported data, you're working with third-party suppliers, you want to reduce the amount of information you have to manage in your own system, this could be a way of doing that. I'm not actually connected to Windchill here, but one thing that might be worth showing you, if I pick on an assembly here, this is a similar functionality that you're going to be able to now do with a maintenance release, is do an open subset. So if I click open subset here, this model was already in session, which is why it's opened up in the background. But here you have a dialog box where you can pick and choose the elements you want to pull through from this model. So if this sub-assembly actually had more components in, I could pick and choose just a few of these components and open those without opening up the full assembly. So that's the similar sort of functionality that you're going to see come to Windchill. Finally then, let's open up this support arm let's activate this. Open up this support arm for this boat here, and we'll show off a final couple of new additions as well. So for creating datum curves, again, we have some new user interface. So again, more consistency across the board. We've got these glyphs that represent the connection type between the point of this curve and the rest of the geometry here. So we could change this by right clicking on it. Say we want a tangent constraint with this curve here, or maybe down the bottom, we have a curvature continuous constraint. And again, we've got different glyphs for those. Something else that's been added is the stretch drag handles. So these stretch values are always have always been here, but they've been hidden as values underneath the end conditions drop-down window. They're now ported over into the user interface for users to make modifications much quicker. Let's cancel this. Let's bring out some of these existing features, and let's jump into an ISDX surface, a style surface here, just to show you that some of those modifications have also been ported across into ISDX as well. So we have modified glyphs, again, improving consistency, again, with the same sort of user interface. So again, just improving that consistency of the UI throughout Creo Parametric. Let me hide a few features off here. I can't remember when, but in a previous version of Creo, we added the ability to have these sort of modified selection methods. So being able to trace, which enables you to draw a line across surfaces in order to select them, or a lasso, which is a free-form selection type. These selection types are now more available within Creo. They were fairly restricted just to surface selection items in previous versions. They are now more available throughout a wider range of Creo Parametric. They're also persistent, so if you choose a trace selection, it's going to remain active as your selection method. But we can use these to grab a set of surfaces. So what we can see here, we've got several surface patches, which I'm going to replace using the new approximate surface tool. So you might find yourself in a situation where you're trying to do an offset of a surface, or you just want to clean up some imported data. I want to offset these surfaces by 20 mil, but things start to fail. Creo can't offset this data that I'm selecting, these items down here. It could be for multiple different reasons, singularities in the surface knots, or a whole host of issues. So what we could do, a method to improve that is maybe replacing these with an approximate surface. So let's choose the trace selection. I'll draw a line through, and I think this line touches. Creo is going to select, hold Control, do another trace there, and we'll do an approximate replacement one here. So under the editing drop down, we've got approximate surface, and it's going to pass a single patched surface through all of those pre-existing selections. Okay, we can also determine our connection type to our reference geometry here. So we're going to maintain a tangency here, and clicking OK, it's going to replace all of those surfaces and trim back our approximate surface to suit. So you can now see that one surface, or those multiple surfaces, are now being replaced with one clean patch. Okay, and now if we were to go and maybe do an offset, again, maybe a 20 mil offset, Creo can now handle that. So nice little tool for cleaning up models and reducing the complexity in your designs. Okay. Another feature is offsetting solid geometry. So if you had a solid surface and you wanted to offset it, you used to have to copy and paste that surface, either using the keyboard shortcuts or up in the dialog box here, copy and paste, and then offset the surface. You can now actually directly offset surfaces from the solid geometry itself, reducing the number of features in the model tree, again, just improving the workflow here. Slight side note on that one. Okay, just looking at the time, let's make sure we get through this. So let's jump back to our presentation. Let's have a look at some of the other specific areas of Creo and some of the improvements. So we'll start off with composites here, design for composites. So Creo 12 is actually the third iteration of PTC's composite design solution. And in Creo 11, PTC introduced the idea of zone-based plies, allowing users to quickly create composite models with really large ply counts. And in Creo 12, that functionality has been extended to now provide an automatic merging for neighboring plies within zones. What that means is if you have a neighboring ply with the same material and the same orientation, it will now automatically merge those plies together into a single ply. Creo 12 also sees the introduction of a laminate reference model, which is sort of following the same concept as a manufacturing reference model. So if you ever use the manufacturing tools, this may resonate with you. So the design part would be inherited from the manufacturing part. So as I said, this is now available within the composite tools and allows changes to be made to the manufacturing model without altering the design part. So an example of that might be you could extend the boundaries of a ply beyond the model surface so that they could be then trimmed back at a later stage in a post-processing operation. But maybe one of the biggest changes to composites has been through performance and robustness of creating the final solid geometry. Creo 12 has actually kind of leapfrogged a lot of our competition when it comes to composites, especially when it comes to generating the final 3D model and the accuracy of that final 3D model. And this is going to enable teams to iterate upon composite designs much faster without compromising any quality issues within the designs. So Again, PTC continuing to make efforts and strides with model-based definition for Creo 12. So in Creo 12, we can see the extended capabilities for model-based definition. So as more customers are looking to leverage the value of a broader and more capable digital thread through the use of MBD, there is now extended support for STEP AP242, which is a standard for STEP. And PTC will also introduce a updated 3D PDF exporter in a future maintenance release, not currently, but in an early maintenance release. PTC should update 3D PDF export. There are also times when annotations and their references are similar across different models. So within Creo 12, we can now copy and paste annotations from one model to another, again, speeding up reuse and improving consistency throughout the product. Let's talk a little bit about simulation. So again, Creo 12, we've integrated the latest ANSYS solvers within our ANSYS tools within Creo 12. So this also aimed at users adopting simulation early in the design cycle. So PTC have focused on consistency and clarity in the results for both Creo Simulation Live and Creo ANSYS Simulation. Simulate Live will also automatically detect context in your models, cutting down the setup time required and reducing the risk of manual errors. Users used to have to go in and manually define those contexts. We can now do that automatically. Support for voltage structures is also now available for Simulate Live and Creo ANSYS Simulation. So users can define bolts, fasteners, and preload conditions, making structural simulations more realistic and complete. Also on the generative design front, we've seen the introduction of thermal optimizations. Expanding upon both structural, modal, we now have thermal goals to work towards as well on the generative front. For Creo Flow, we can now simulate sound generation and propagation, which is ideal for scenarios like fan noise and moving parts. So this supports multiple analysis types and outputs data like acoustic power and sound pressure. Creo Flow Premium also supports electric current flow, meaning that you can analyze voltage, current, joule heating, and electromagnetic forces, which are powered by the Maxwell, a Maxwell-based solver. Streamlines are also more flexible. You can control the release shapes, directions, and animate them with temperature or pressure data. And finally, then we added a reporting wizard to quickly generate HTML summaries of your simulation, which includes things like the scenes, boundary conditions, and all the results as well. Let's wrap up then with manufacturing. A few updates here. So PTC have continued to invest in both additive and subtractive manufacturing, and especially with more businesses looking to leverage additive manufacturing for building mold tools, Creo 12's introduced a new conformal cooling feature, and this conforming cooling feature will automatically create channels, cooling channels through the mold tool that actually conform to your designs. That leads to more even cooling in the mold, resulting in faster production times and increased tool life, these sorts of things. So these channels are typically produced via additive manufacturing and have control over the shape and the channel to help in the printing process. Okay, so you can modify these things. Specifically for additive, Creo 12 can create variable density custom lattices based upon simulation results. So those custom lattice types that you can define, we can now vary the density of those based upon a simulation result, which is something we could do for some of the standard lattice types, but now you can have your own lattice structures that you've designed and have those modified based upon simulation results. High-speed machining has also been developed, and we introduced new capabilities to support undercut machining operations, as well as providing greater control of multi-body parts in a manufacturing assembly. Again, overall improving productivity, efficiency for manufacturing engineers that are leveraging this functionality within Creo Parametric. So, thank you for sticking with me through that overview of Creo 12. As I said, we didn't have time to run through every single update for Creo. As I said, I think there are over 250 unique additions to Creo 12. So that may have been a bit of a boring presentation to run through in full, but hopefully some of those things you've seen have resonated with you and stick with you, and you can see some of the benefits. If there's anything you do want to see, we want more information on, either leave a comment in the webinar here, or reach out to us, reach out to your account managers, and we can definitely set things up. Maybe you want to see some more additive information or manufacturing. Please do reach out to us, and we'll try our best to answer your questions. But speaking of questions, let me have a quick look at the chat here and see if there's anything that we can run through. Will the full feature list be released in the PTC Creo Help Center? Yes, so I assume what you mean, will all the new features be listed in the Creo Help files? Yeah, so if you have a look at the Creo Help files now for Creo 12, you should be able to find the What's New category, and all of the information there, all of the updates will be released in that Help Center there. You also get videos and instructional pictures and things like that. I actually already answered that. Okay, there we go. Can we get the enclosure dimensions into Windchill? I don't see why not. They are parameters, so you could designate those parameters, or at least copy those parameters into a user-defined one and then designate those and pull those across into Windchill. So yes, it's not something I've tried, but I'm pretty sure we could pull those parameters over. Where are feature presets saved? They are saved in the Creo Parametric customization.ui file, which is a bit of a mouthful. I think I said it right, but there's a .ui file, and they are unique to each user, but you can create a admin.ui file, which you can then share across the business. So yes, you can share those feature presets across the business. Can you have multiple toggle features to capture visibility? Oh, hang on, I can't see all of that question. How do I see more? There we go. Can you have multiple toggle features to capture multiple visibility states? No, I don't think that's a capability at the moment. That visibility state is that ad hoc one-time thing. So it's for where you're working at the moment. You capture that state, you then move on, capture another state. You can't create multiple at the moment, to the best of my knowledge. Maybe that's something we might get in future, but at the moment it's an ad hoc, one at a time, go. What else have we got here? What version of Windchill is Creo 12 compatible with? I'm actually currently waiting on the updated matrix from PTC on that. That was something I wanted to include, but that shouldn't be long. I should get that relatively soon. So I will, when we send out these Q&As, I will do my best to include that if I have the information, which hopefully I should do. Okay, I think that is everything on the question front. I don't see any more here, but again, please do fire through any if you do have any further questions. But thank you all for joining me, and we'll see you again in future, I'm sure. Thank you all very much.